Hi everyone, my name is Diogo. I am a medical illustrator, and that means that I create visual materials that are used in everything related to medicine. So that includes, for example, an anatomical drawing of human part that is going to be featured on a medical textbook, or several illustrations on a specific surgery. We will cover the step-by-step in a scientific publication. We can think of graphs and data visualization that will be used by a pharmaceutical company in their internal or external communication materials. And even, for example, visual materials for patient, for example, instructions on how patients should use a specific medical device. I never consider art and medical illustration in particular as a career option because I never thought people will be willing to pay me to draw. I always saw draw as a kind of a hobby. And it was only when I went into veterinary medicine school that I realized that this was actually a field and people were working full-time on this particular field. But also there was a lot of work to be done in terms of visual education materials for, in particular, veterinary and veterinary students. I remember when I had to study anatomy, I was oftentimes let down by the options that we had in terms of diagrams and images and textbooks, etc. It was never a conscious decision, but things just lined up, and I saw the need and I saw my willingness to try something different. So I really like this question because oftentimes people assume that I had to basically shift my career entirely, but I nowadays really know that it is because I've studied veterinary medicine that I was able to migrate into this field of medical illustration. When I was at the university, I learned, all of the medical background that I would need as a medical illustrator. So anything from anatomy to histology, microbiology, everything related to animal health. It's also very interesting that while I was at university, I was part of the scientific department of the student board. And that meant that I was involved in a lot of initiatives, for example, organizing seminars and conferences, also putting together a scientific magazine. And all of that allowed me to really understand a bit how communication in general should work, with the potential people that we were going to interview, professors that would be participating in our conferences. Also, we had to create promotional materials. So it was through this experience that I first got to learn about, Adobe Photoshop and InDesign, which are very important programs for anyone who works visual illustration design field. It was also through university that I was able to go to Zurich in Switzerland to do my master's project. I eventually stayed in Zurich some years more to work in research. And during that time, I finally was able to actually do a semester course in scientific illustration, which gave me the sparkle to really understand that was something I really wanted to do and to lay the foundation again for my artistic background. For anyone interested, I would recommend you to check the website of the Association of Medical Illustrators, the American main association, where they really list out all the available options. If you are like me and only later on understand or decide that this is a field that you want to try, I think there are a lot of smaller courses and workshops that you can try to find online or even physically in your own city that could help you get furnished with the tools that you need to become a medical illustrator without going back to the university. So this actually came about because when I was working in research, and also even later when I worked at the medical communications agency, I realized that Scientists, they need to communicate their data, but they are sometimes not the best at doing that. Scientists, most of the time, they don't have any formal training presenting data. They know how to collect the data, they know how to analyze it, but then when it comes to actually communicating their data in written form, verbally, or even visually, not all the people have the training to do that. So these workshops and seminars, they are really focused on that. They are very varied in terms of duration and length and even complexity, depending on the target audience. But mostly they focus on giving scientists, PhD students, master students, some tips on how to better present their data, be it in how they produce their graphs, how they tailor their posters, or even PowerPoints and presentations. So the goal of those seminars is really to take what I have learned during all these years and then give back to the scientific community. What I find the most satisfying when I work as a medical illustrator is all the learning that goes into creating a medical illustration. Even if it's a topic that I'm already familiar with, I always need and I always should go and read more about the topic, see what my client has. Maybe they are writing an article and I should read that article to understand exactly what I need to illustrate. Also, I should complement that with other references to see if I can compile all the relevant information for the visual material that I'll need to create. It's almost like a puzzle. You have a lot of different pieces and you need to find the most compelling and didactic way to put that together. I find it very rewarding to think that I can help someone who is in the position that I was some years ago, where I didn't have maybe that many visual resources, and make sure that they are getting better learning materials. I'm currently working on veterinary anatomy textbook, where we are covering only neuroanatomy and the anatomy of the circulatory system. And in particular, the neuroanatomy is a field that is not so well developed. So it has been a challenge, but a very rewarding one. We are creating a lot of new illustrations that haven't been done before. I also worked on a couple of data visualization projects recently. I think also those are some of my favorites because it's a new field that I'm getting into and I'm learning a lot. As a freelancer, which I now am full-time, the schedule can be very different. It usually involves some sort of planning and emails at the start of the day, then hopefully start with a larger task. I always like to have a main task per day that I can focus myself on, and then have maybe one or two extra smaller tasks to make sure that I am not overwhelmed by the end of the day. I usually plan what I'm going to do the next day, or if it's a bigger project, this will be already kind of planned in advance. I really like to make sure that I close off my emails, that I really leave work, although I work from home, that I really turn off and just go to do my personal life. As I was mentioning, VR, so virtual reality, and AR, augmented reality, I'm curious to see where this is going. I think as tools for medical education, these are very promising. Also, the roles that they can have in surgeries, it's really a whole new world out there. I'm really excited about the growth of data visualization in general, not only within the medical illustration community, but I think there has been a big surge in information designers. And I think, again, in a time where so much data is out there, We really need to find good people who understand how to communicate this data. So I'm really excited to see how the field grows into more didactic and interactive materials. Recently, I got a request from a high school student who wanted to learn more about medical illustration and how to get into medical illustration. The best advice I could give to this person and to everyone in general is to don't rush. Don't limit yourself by having already a very fixed idea of what you want to do. I know this may sound demotivating. Be open to everything that can be happening. Also, the concept of a lifelong single career is getting very outdated. So I think be open and flexible to everything that comes your way. It's very important to make sure you combine the scientific background with the artistic background. But I think what is important is to make sure that you have those two solid foundations, and in the meantime, understand a bit about business, how it is to be a freelancer, have initiative. Do not limit yourself in the sense of where you are geographically, because luckily nowadays we can work with virtually anyone around the world. And finally, there is also a website I wanted to share, which is called Learn Medical Art. This is an online course. I think this is also a very good starting point for everyone curious about the field.